what was your first deal, Randall? So you got in with your father. So when did you finally decide, like, okay, I'm going to do this on my own? Or did dad push you into like, hey, time for you to do a deal, son? And how did that all work out? What was your first deal like?
So the question, what was my first deal? I would break up into two parts. What was my first deal I was involved in, with my hands on it? And what was the first deal that I took the leadership and, pulled together money and directed from start to finish? So the first part of that answer is a triplex in Costa Mesa on Wilson Street, actually. It was a fix and flip. Greg found it, kind of put me up to the task. Hey, you've been kind of throwing in a few hundred, few thousand here as a kid. Why don't you, put a little bit more savings into this deal and help us out a little more. So I was knocking on doors, serving 60-day eviction notices. I was handing out increases to one of the tenants, dealing with huge termite issues, just getting all the bids. It was fun until we were about on that 59th day, ready to move out. And one of the tenants has this 1976 Cadillac that he drove up from Guatemala. God, I want to say, in the 80s, sometime in the 80s. And he had it in this garage since the 80s. And it's been there so long, the tires have disintegrated. The rims had actually melted and molded into the concrete. Like they were one, so the car wouldn't move.
Wow.
And this tenant had, he had.
Was there a fire? Like,
I don't know if there was a fire. I mean, if there was, we never found out about it, but we literally had this car that was immovable. And we had like 4 or 5 bids come out. Some guy was like, yeah, we'll just saw it out of there, use the jaws of life, everything. I'm talking like construction. We had rubbish guys, like everything. And we finally ended up cutting the rims from the concrete, pulled it out. And I'm telling you, I've never seen, first of all, the car was like beautiful. It was relatively well maintained, except for obviously it didn't have working wheels. But I'd never dealt with anything like that. I was just a kid, midway through college. It's just like, what do you mean your car doesn't move? So that was an interesting first deal story. And then the other deal, the first one.
How did you get it? How did you get it? So you like a hacksaw, chop saw?
So they had the the metal cutters, like those saws that had off the table. So he had it off the table and he just went at it. I mean, I stopped by. It took about 3 hours. I was there for about 15 minutes. I was like, I'm not going to hang around and watch this thing. He had the full, the mask, and he's cutting this thing away. And the tenant's just sitting there like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like my car. I don't know if he salvaged it or whatever, but they put it on the back of a tow truck and took it to his next place. So I guess he dropped it in that garage next.